So we're talking about the challenges of recognizing our needs. And so one of the key things, we talked about is concurrent needs. There are multiple needs operating, in this very moment. And so if, more than one of them is off, then it's going to be difficult to recognize it. But then the other thing I said is that oftentimes we confuse between thinking and feeling. And so what you'll notice is that when you're dissatisfied, you will try and solve the dissatisfaction. And so we recognize our dissatisfaction and we get focused on solving a certain problem. So something is going on, we're not happy about it. So we do know in general that we're not happy. And, our association automatically comes up with a strategy as to how we can solve that problem to be happy. Now, however, that solution that we talked about, that we're trying to solve, doesn't necessarily correlate to the need that we have. And so, as we talked about a couple of videos ago, the two problems that we have is that we're using the wrong strategy for the right need, or we have the wrong need for the right strategy, which basically means that we're solving the wrong problem, or we're trying to solve the right problem, but we have the wrong way to solve it, right? And so oftentimes we don't realize the distinction. We just know that there's a problem, we're trying to solve it. But we don't realize the feeling behind that's driving it, because we're used to just feeling and acting out of that feeling instead of actually feeling deeper into the feeling. So we have a generalized feeling of dissatisfaction or being unhappy or being uncomfortable, but we're not used to becoming present with what we're feeling and then realizing, okay, I've been thinking that I want to solve this, but then really, why am I trying to solve this? And then really feeling into it. And so we're not used to feeling into what our needs are that's causing us to feel urgent about solving the problem while we're rushing. And so since a lot of us don't have the practice, that's why we're running around like a chicken with its head cut off. And so the most important thing I would say is that if for some reason you're happy and you're solving the problem, but you don't know what and why this is happening, then you should write down what you think the problem is. And then once you write down all what the problem is, which are strategies, you should look at what it is that you're feeling, and then you should actually look at what the need behind that feeling is that you're feeling. And then oftentimes you'll realize, oh, and it's not uncommon that most of those things on your list will actually come off because you're solving the wrong problem. And so it's kind of interesting because it's really started becoming clear when I was working in the corporate world, and you're working all the time, and I'm anxious, and there's this problem I'm trying to solve for my boss, for my client, for my coworkers, and then because I'm feeling anxious, I'm realizing, oh, okay, my needs are not being met. So I'll slow down and I'll check into my anxiety. And I'm realizing I'm working really hard because I am using my anxiety as a fuel to try and resolve this problem so that I can relax. So my current need is to relax, but I'm feeling anxious so that I can take care of this problem so that I don't have to worry about it, so that I can relax, which is an interesting thing. So my current need is to relax, but I'm delaying it for the future because my strategy is that if I don't need to think about this anymore, then finally I can relax, which actually is a good strategy, which is actually true a lot of times. If you continue thinking about it, then it's actually not untrue that it's very difficult to just relax. And so I realized, oh, so my real need right now is to relax. When I recognized that, that was actually really helpful. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, what's so bad about this problem? And so I just started looking at this a little bit closer, and I realized, and this is actually, not just this one particular, but actually, it's like this is something I've realized actually is really true in general. But in this particular case, I started looking at it and I realized I'm giving myself extra pain and I'm making this extra urgent so that I can solve this faster, so that I can get there sooner. And I realized I don't actually like that. It's very unnecessary. I can actually relax now. As a matter of fact, if I relax now, I can see this with better perspective and I can solve it better. And so I started sitting back and I just actually started looking at it and I realized, oh wow, this is actually even the wrong problem to solve. This is actually not the right problem. This is what they were upset about. But if I actually take care of this, then this is not even a problem. And things like that happen all the time. And so I realized, oh, just calming yourself down to actually recognize what your need is solves it better. And so, it's kind of interesting that we all have this experience where, we don't want to look bad, right? And so you're not prepared, and you don't want anyone to know that you're not prepared, because if people find out, you're concerned that they're going to think less of you. And so you try and kind of play it cool. And then people find out anyways. And then you're trying to make excuses, and then you end up looking worse, right? And when you kind of look at that, it's kind of interesting. If we take a moment and we realize, oh, I don't want to look bad, what would actually allow me to look better? So I have a need to actually have respect. So my need is for respect. Okay, and I don't want to look bad to these people because I will lose respect. But if they find out later, which probably will happen, and I'm not saying it's always going to happen. Sometimes you should not mention it. This is not a video on you should always be upfront. That's actually not the case. That's actually a rule, and a rule doesn't always work. It's kind of people confuse honesty and disclosure, and or transparency and honesty, and they're not the same thing. Like for instance, a good example is like when someone dies and had a terrible death, and and there's a child that's really close to this person who had a terrible, horrific death. You might be honest that this person passed, or you might just be honest that you're not ready to tell them. But it may not be the right thing to just actually disclose or be transparent to what happened in the name of honesty, right? And so there's a right time for everything. And so I feel that honesty is actually basically dealing with the truth of the matter in the moment. And the truth of the matter in the moment is that this child may not be ready for that kind of information. That doesn't mean you should just outright lie to the kid. I'm not saying that. But there's a level of honesty where you may actually tell the child that the person passed, but you may actually not need to disclose the entire detail. And so Brene Brown also actually talks about this, but vulnerability without boundaries is not vulnerability, and disclosure is not the same thing as vulnerability. And in the same manner, honesty, this can be taken to really all the characters. So nice is not the same thing as true love and kindness. Oftentimes people confuse that. Actually, sometimes being really direct and honest is kindness, and nice could be a lie, right? Isn't that interesting? So people confuse those things. So in the story, like, when you're looking for respect, you realize that, in this circumstance, I should let them know that I wasn't prepared, because they're going to find out anyways. And if I try and hide it, they will actually lose respect for me. And so now sometimes, it also happens where I've been in situations where, because of this sense of honesty, this is actually what I was explaining, I just tell them, but it was a case where no one would have cared anyways. And the whole program is behind and everyone is late. The dates that you were given was really impossible. and you know, basically, um, you know, it's kind of like no one's really asking, and everyone's just trying to do their best. And if all of a sudden you're not even being asked, it's not even your turn, or even if it is your turn, that part is not relevant. But you just say, "Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't prepare for this." Um, then, actually, ironically, you're gonna again lose respect because you're just disclosing. You're not really being honest or being upfront. You're just disclosing. That's why rules don't work. That's actually why you need to be aware of what the need is in the moment. And so I was just explaining this because if you recognize that your need is for respect, then you can actually look at what actually would give you respect in that moment, and you'll find out, oh, it might be me just being honest with the situation. And so understanding your need in that moment, because you recognize what's going on, because you're feeling like you don't like what's going on right now, and you're realizing that you're trying to do something but you're not feeling good, then you can slow yourself down and you can look at why you are thinking that needs to be done. And you have to examine why you think it needs to be done. And oftentimes, when you start examining why you think it needs to be done, you start realizing, oh, it may not need to be done at all. And the matter is that we're just not used to becoming present with our feelings in that moment because we don't realize how nuanced our feelings are. And I think that's actually a big issue because I feel that we recognize that our thoughts are very nuanced, but I don't think we recognize how nuanced our feelings are and how nuanced our needs are, and that we actually can get better direction from our needs than we can actually from our thinking, because thinking follows a certain rule, a set of rules and knowledge and strategies. The great thing about your feelings and needs is that your needs are picking up things from what's going on right now, because it's trying to keep your system balanced in relation to what's going on, which is basically your relationship with other people and the environment, right? So that's a great hint. That means that your need is actually the source of your awareness. And so, like in the example I was giving, oh, this is a situation where I actually really shouldn't mention anything because it's not relevant, or being able to say, you know what, I need to tell people that I've dropped a buck here, and what I need to do about that if I want to maintain a good sense of connection, order, and also respect and trust, because I may actually lose a little bit, I may disappoint them, but actually I'll be able to maintain a level of trust because I was upfront. And so this is very nuanced. This is actually what your feelings, and when you hit it, you'll notice that your body relaxes and you feel a certain sense of letting go and a certain sense of surrender. And this is that famous letting go people are talking about. When you recognize what your need is and you meet it.